Everyone is here. The recap is done. I think we're good to go. Let's start with Ray and Demeter.
All right. Is Demeter doing stuff? Because Ray's more or less all of his loose ends are tied up and he's ready to travel. So I don't know. Are we gonna play out your hostile takeover of the gambling den?
Well, no, hostile takeover is gonna happen later. Someone else is gonna do it.
Do you have
I'm not gonna do it.
arrangements to make, or?
Well, no, I have to make the arrangements back there. Really.
Okay.
Do we want to set up a protective detail for the counter agent? Because I have upon sitting on it for like more than a second, I would kill him in prison.
You would, or your enemy would. At this point, I don't even know what you're talking about.
They are the same. They're one and the same.
Okay, then in very plain terms, please describe to me what it is you wish to arrange for having this man. You want to protect him, or you want to kill him?
I know I do not want to kill him. I want him alive. But
Okay.
I would kill him.
Because I didn't know what you were asking. All right.
I totally got it, and it made it that much funnier. Yeah, foreign Demeter. Foreign agent Demeter would kill him.
To counter a criminal, you must think like a criminal.
That's how we saved the Cassic's life.
Exactly. I'm having
You were like, I'd just go kill him in the temple.
Yeah.
Okay. Why again does he have to like sit here for a week? Can we just expedite his transport?
He's got to be processed, due process. You know how it is.
Okay.
I think because we had to send a letter to verify his nobility. He can't be extradited until his nobility is verified.
Okay.
Correct.
At any point, did he testify that he was here alone, or was that topic ever broached?
Don't think it was broached.
Okay, because it also occurs to me that like what is Raven technology? Can we establish that real quick?
They're not fucking ravens.
They're
pigeons.
Why do they have to be pigeons?
What is the messenger goose technology like?
No one actually uses fucking ravens.
Yeah,
but they're so cool.
I like how like
a stupid Game of Thrones thing.
Why are you so vehement about the species of? I think it's like a Monty Python thing. Like a raven couldn't carry a message.
40 miles an hour.
What about like a bald eagle or something?
If I let one Game of Thrones thing go, you're gonna just unleash the whole floodgates of Game of Thrones bullshit into the game.
Okay,
Never.
What unspecified aviary creature carrying a message? How fast would that go?
Can it be a horse trident?
A horse trident? A fucking flying dinosaur? And they're hunted for sport. All right, so yeah, let's like do the worst.
Fast as fuck. It would take like, I don't know,
like a day.
Let's say the expected turnaround time to get a message to the Horn and back is 4 days.
Okay, so yeah, realistically, like assuming that King that he has agents here, like it's very possible that like word could get back and then word could come back, like take him out. So like that's a feasible concern then. Not like he would be out in time. So yes, then I would absolutely agree he needs a protective detail.
Were you gonna leave your 2 knights here, or were they coming back with us to the city?
Yeah, I had otherwise dismissed them, but if we want to just rope this in as well, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Send word for Veers. He's an expert bodyguard.
Yeah, send for Veers.
He's doing such a great job. So diligent.
Yeah. No, I think it makes all the sense in the world to get my 2 dudes. Like they know what we're up against. They know the stakes. They know like the types of people that will be coming if someone comes. So yeah, I guess to amend my dismissing them last session, we would have roped them in for watching this dude for a week.
Okay.
they oversee it. You know, they take shifts. It's 2 of them because they're
Yeah.
gonna have to do it for a week.
And I don't think their presence will even be weird because it's like this dude is like an enemy of the state, and a general is there to personally oversee his capture. So of course he would leave 2 of his men to babysit him.
I like to think you did actually release them, and then you and Demeter realized you needed them, and you like ran out into the street and got them, and were like, "Guys, actually, I lied."
That was like every interaction we had in Zinhea was like very good. Then I bid you adieu. And like not even 30 seconds later, wait! I have more questions.
They got outside and they shook hands and they were like, "Good job." Well, hope I never see you again. And then you go and you're like, "Wait."
I need you to wash my car.
All right. Yes, they will handle the protection.
Good. All right. Does this satisfy Demeter?
Yes.
Okay, and then does Demeter have any more work to do before we go back?
Yep. The only thing I gotta do is topple a casino. We're gonna do that when we get there. And we are good here. We can leave.
Okay. So we make all necessary arrangements and we head for the capital.
Right.
We gather our rations so that we don't starve on the way out there.
I stop and I get a 2 10-foot pole. Replace my 2 ball bearings that I used.
You need some rope.
Yep.
We're getting near rope.
Approximately 881 drops of rain fall on your journey back. So pretty
That
clear
seems like-
weather.
That's clear. Oh, I guess 881 individual raindrops.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It is a desert.
Yeah, it doesn't rain very much. You arrive back in the capital. Do you notify anyone of your return?
The king
Okay.
or the chancellor, whoever is more appropriate to inform.
Sure. Yeah, you can tell Chancellor.
Are we heralded back in? Is there a man who screams our arrival?
Nope.
Like that guy from Thor has to like run up and announce us.
Nope. You're not like showing up with a bunch of men in a banner. So no one's
Yeah. For what it's worth, we were on a secret mission.
That's true.
Yeah.
Then I suppose, unless the general needs to do anything, we would probably head back to the castle and try to set up a meeting with the king and probably the chancellor as well.
Yeah, we report to the king.
Excellent.
I'm reporting for punishment.
You say that as a joke, but
You go to the Chancellor, you request a super secret audience at the Secret Council. And Chancellor gets the
Denied.
king.
The king is
And
far
you all
too
meet.
busy for the likes of you.
Did the king? I'm trying to remember. You guys might remember better than me. Did the king even know what you guys had gone to do, or is all of this news
Yes.
to him?
I think he did know what we were going to do. I think we told him before we. I don't think we just left. I'm fairly sure we had a meeting and then we left.
Okay.
did
Cool.
Yeah.
what exactly was his impression of our? Because I'm trying to remember. We got the word that the dude had died before the wedding, and we went up there to confirm that. Was that like the exact reason we left?
Yeah, we
Or
went
was-
up there to kind of suss out what was going on.
I'm remembering it now. Actually, it was you guys had basically posed that you thought there may have been foul play, and that
Yeah, the timing of his death
either
was too
somebody might
perfect.
have killed King Sarum, or somebody might have lied about when he died, or any of these things may have happened. And so you went up to just investigate and find out whether foul play had occurred. And obviously, it escalated from there. Yeah. So once he calls everyone together, the king says, General, Mr. Crane, what did you find?
Wait, was that the king or was it the chancellor?
It's the
Okay.
chancellor. You go "Puh," spit. Like talk to the king.
General, maybe you should start. I'll close.
General, I insist.
I'll ask you, Cody. Are you sure about this? This is Jeff to Cody. Are you sure about this?
I'll punch it up in post.
Okay. All right. So just to be perfectly fucking clear, Randall, it's just the chancellor and the king in the room.
Yes.
Okay.
There's the four of you meeting in your very secret place that you handle all of your secret business. It's not the secret garden. That's a separate secret place where essentially no secret business is actually conducted. This is where all of it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it was as we feared. The king did pass before the wedding.
Oh.
That said, the chancellor who reported on his death, by sheer coincidence, was under. Wait, was it? God damn it! Okay, the chancellor did not speak with King Combe, right?
Correct.
The
Okay.
chancellor told the truth, which is that the king died, and
Yes.
then we had to lie in post.
Okay, so you got it. So the chancellor who was in charge of reporting his death first confided in his friend, the Kasich Pothet, who, as we learned, was in talks with King.
Pull up the
I closed the ledger. I'm sorry,
Marzash?
guards. King Combe. All right. And he was on the pay from an agent of King Combe. So by sheer coincidence, the king did get what he wanted. That said, we were able to have words with the chancellor, and well, his story changed.
The king quietly considers this and then says, "And how was that taken? Him reneging on his word?"
I believe that the council established there believes the narrative that we're wishing to sell here, that King he doesn't have a token. King Sarum lived long enough for the wedding to take place. That is the official narrative and the narrative that they are pushing.
Aaron nods along and then says, "And what was the official narrative's reason for the story changing? You say that the Chancellor told the truth and then lied for us, which is good."
A man torn between loyalty to his gods and to his country, or kingdom, I guess. His closest friend is a cassock of the church, who encouraged him not to let, with respect, this heathen god take the throne.
And what of the cassock?
He's repented. After an agent of King Combs tried to assassinate him, a plot we foiled, of course.
And did this happen in truth, or was this
Oh, this is all
another
very much
illusion?
so true.
So they made an attempt on his life?
Correct. I believe we may
Don't
have stumbled
suppose we
upon
had
something.
any luck in apprehending the assassin?
The assassin has been apprehended. He is currently awaiting trial in Atten, but he will soon be in our custody within the fortnight. That's 2 weeks, right? Fortnight is 2 weeks.
Yes, it is.
Aaron looks slightly confused, very optimistic and pleased with the news that the assassin has been apprehended, but slightly confused. And then he asks, "If you thwarted his plans and apprehended him, why is he not already in our custody?"
Due process. Um, it's an excellent question.
It made sense in the time. I'm
It
trying.
did make sense. It did make a lot of sense at the time, and now I'm trying to reconstruct it.
I
And
think you were scared of bringing him into the capital, like yourself or something. I don't.
yeah. I think we needed it to look like
He was being extradited.
official. Yeah. Okay. I remember that.
Oh, because the deal you struck with him.
Yeah, I was about to say
Yeah.
the real reason is that he asked you to.
That's right.
All right.
Well, you see, the narrative is all a little complicated, but essentially, it was the most official way to do it to make it the least suspicious possible. As he is an undercover agent, it would behoove us not to just up and take him. We had to go through some hoops to get him
So,
in our custody without suspicion.
where is he?
Uh, he's currently sitting in a cell and at noon.
Under what pretense?
Well, I guess not attempted murder. I think we went with extortion.
So,
Out of game,
the
Cody. He
council
testified,
in
right?
Yeah, for extortion. He didn't testify for attempted murder. He was very
right.
specific about that.
Yeah.
Did he? Okay.
Yes.
He says, "So the council at Atanoon and the courts there know of the assassination attempt."
They Yes, they are aware um of the attempt on Zakin Poffit's life. Poffit.
The king looks slightly frustrated and then
Mm.
says, "We weren't able to keep this out of the light."
Unfortunately, I do not think that was possible nor advantageous for us.
And House Garzash was implicated
Of
publicly?
course. Yes.
He looks like he considers this for a long time and then says, "Well, time will reveal if this is very good or very bad."
Well, if this makes the deal any better, uh Demeter will produce the the document with the list of names that was provided to him by Mr. Cretius. And I'll put it on the table and he'll say, he did provide us with this, a potential list of handlers for other agents of House Garsage. One, and he'll point to the one, the guy that's here,
Mhm.
is amongst our amidst our amongst or fuck. He's here amongst us.
King,
Did you write the chancellor's name in your own handwriting?
the king sees The king sees the name and says, I recall him. I met him on my wedding night.
Yes.
And you say he reports to House Gazash?
If our new CI is to be believed, then yes. I will of course verify it myself. But if this is true, we could use this list to pick the spies out of our nest, if you will.
Or use it against them.
Or use it against them. Inform the other kingdoms of the spies in their ranks that House Garsash has placed there.
Aaron thinks for a moment.
Political
and then says,
tool.
If we take that route, which I believe has some merit, we must do it very secretly. I fear that any more open allegations against House Garzash may cause a war to erupt prematurely.
Well, at the very least, officially, no blood has been shed. Thank God.
Whew. The bell chimes.
There's just a little dude in the corner playing a triangle.
Sire, may I go to the bathroom, please?
Yeah, it's King
Now.
Adderchance's favorite instrument.
Demeter hasn't revealed that the spy is
Am I
going to
withholding?
be that the spy is going to be intercepted, right?
He didn't reveal any of the info about the extradition or
That's
him
right.
Well,
being
yeah.
the Lord
I
or
mean,
Okay.
I don't
anything.
think that he would bother himself with it or should know. Plausible deniability.
Got it.
Yeah, so the king says, keep me apprised of any further developments on this tracking down spies campaign. Additionally, I will give consideration to your suggestion of using it as a political trade.
Of course.
Perhaps, he says and thinks, he says, perhaps if we had some way of contacting my daughter and Severus discreetly, this could be passed to them for political leverage.
Well, I am a man of many talents. Once we're able to ascertain which name belongs to which kingdom, I believe that I can accomplish that. Passing the names on to onto our little explorers.
He nods and says, yes, do so. They may even be of some use in finding them.
Yes. Severus has a nose for treachery.
The Chancellor
That's a
adds,
bold fucking
and a
statement.
guest always sees more than a thief.
Wait, what did the Chancellor say?
The Chancellor adds, and a guest always sees more of the house than the thief.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
And the king says, yes, if they are close to the thrones, then our spies may never even see them. whereas the princess may.
Right.
Have you anything else to report?
Jeff,
Ray shakes his head.
am I withholding anything else that I'm not aware of?
I think you're aware of what you're withholding.
Yeah, just the extradition bits and like your plan to shipwreck him. Like that's all still on ice.
Yeah.
But beyond
I
that, I
believe
think that's everything.
Yes, I believe that to be it.
The king just kind of nods at both of you and says, "Well done." Your endeavors went far better than I could have foreseen.
Did it, Jeff? We're gonna get trophies. Are there any medals?
We're going to be
Trophies.
punished. Ray would rise and then bow his head. Thank you, my liege.
Demeter will do so as well, but much less enthusiastically.
So cool.
The king says, "If there is nothing else, you are all dismissed." And the chancellor says, "I may have something else."
Okay.
Wow.
I sit back
Wait
down.
for the fucking buzzer.
Yeah. I sit back down awkwardly. Oh, I thought we were gonna all dramatically leave. Okay.
The chancellor thinks for a second
Demeter
and then
Crane
says,
is the spot.
Get him!
he says, "Perhaps, well, perhaps there's a way to turn some of the people on this list. Make double agents out of them. I mean," he shrugs and says, "I have only met King Combe once, and we didn't exactly share much conversation, but my impression of him certainly is that very few who follow him do so out of loyalty or faith. Many do it for money or power or out of fear. Money, power, and fear are all things that we command quite effectively." And he looks at Demeter and says, "Do you think you could turn any of them, given the opportunity?"
Uh, it's possible. Um, we've already turned one of them, but that was an agent. Handlers are a whole nother thing. They're usually a little bit more capable. But he looks at the list again and says, "But this man, this noble, I can't imagine he's very durable under pressure. Unless is he? Is this guy fucking built like a
The
brick
merchant
shit
dude,
house? Yeah.
uh, he's like tall and fat, not
Okay.
like he's not like a beast or anything. He's like
Also, real quick,
he's big, but
were these guys
he's
all
not a
confirmed
fighter.
to be like one in each kingdom, or could there be multiple in one place?
I don't think we
Uh,
confirmed anything.
We
We
just
just know
have.
that there's one in
Depends what
ours.
you mean by confirmed.
Well, how many names are on the list?
So when it was given to him, uh, Delos said that there was one in each kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right.
Got it.
So it's just whether you count that as confirmation or not.
Okay.
Is he telling the truth? He was too forthcoming. There's no way he's telling the truth. He's definitely lying about something.
The king looks relatively uninterested in the chancellor's proposal, And he kind of just waves it off and says, "Well, Mr. Crane, if you have such opportunities, I trust you to act on them.
Of
Otherwise,
course.
I leave these things to you." And then he says, "You're all dismissed. Again, well done, the both of you." And he
Just the two
leaves.
of you. Only you two.
Chancellor, see me in my office.
What was that proposition? You embarrassed me so much.
Stupid.
Demeter, I need
I
you
was-
to have my back in there, and you didn't.
I was trying to look so cool in front of those two. They're usually so calm and composed. And then here you go.
The chancellor like steals one more look at the list of names as though he's like seeing if he recognizes anybody. And then after like looking at it for a minute, he kind of like locks eyes with you for a second and then just gives a slight like bow of his head and says, "Well, well done, Mr. Crane and General. I will I'll be standing by if you require my assistance with any of this."
I
He knows
nod.
something.
Yep.
He leaves.
I will break him.
I step outside.
Would you describe his looking at the list to be suspicious? Was he suspiciously looking at the list?
Well, he locked eyes
He
with you.
seems both fascinated by this development, which makes sense. Part of his job, actually, I mean, most of this is under your domain, right? But part of his job is like the security of the kingdom, and in particular, the capital, and like vetting people who get close to the king. So it's very reasonable to assume that he sees the presence of this dude's name on this list as a personal failure.
Ooh.
And so chances are he's thinking to himself, like, fuck, I vetted this guy. I thought that he was like safe to bring into the palace and bring to these events and things, and to these dinners and whatever else the guy's been attending, right? And so the chancellor, probably looking at this list again, is like second guessing himself and like making sure that no one else on this list is someone that he knows, that he's like given information to or given access to things to. Um, that's probably what it is. I think that's probably Demeter's read on it.
He doubts himself. Now is the time to strike.
Never mind. That's Demeter's read on it.
You like draw your dagger
What does that
and
mean?
follow him out of the room. Excuse me.
Can I see you in the Garden of Secrets?
Is there a separate garden for murdering people?
Yeah, it's the Garden of
I like
Secrets.
to
but it's a
imagine that
book.
the Garden of Secrets is like a different place every time. And like he's like, "Come with me to the Garden of Secrets." And they're like, "Isn't it the other way?" And he's like, "It wouldn't be a secret if it was." Like
It's like the Room of Requirement in Harry Potter. It's wherever you need it to be. Exactly when you need it to be there.
I think the room requirement is whatever you need it to be, but it stays in the same place.
Shit.
Just not to.
It's like
not to
Valdis's. It's
throw
like
it in.
Valdis's rope trick.
Just
Yeah.
like the
Cody.
Garden of Secrets.
Yeah.
It can be a murder room, or it can be a room to just, quietly talk
Chill.
with your best friends.
Yeah.
Or hide bodies.
we need to all play fucking Betrayal at Hill House at some point.
Absolutely. Love that game.
Just so whenever Cody walks into a room, we can all make wild assumptions about what he's doing.
We already do that. I played BSG with this man for 3 years. That's every time he enters the room, that's what I immediately go to.
Dude, like one time playing Betrayal, I like tricked the shit out of everybody there's one where like it's like Saw and everybody has like an exploding collar with like a timer on it. And I just like completely bamboozled everyone and I was the bad guy all along. And ever since then, everyone just kills me at the start of the betrayal. Like, if it's one that allows you to fight people, they're just like, well, if Randall's the bad guy, he's gonna fucking fool us all, so we'll kill him just in case. And I'm like, God damn it.
You just perfectly described Cody and Sidian's relationship in BSG. There were games where he literally killed you on his first turn.
Couldn't be trusted. I get it. I respect the hustle.
There's been so many times where people are just like, yep, well, I don't believe anything he says ever again. No, guys, wait. There's even ones where like there isn't a bad guy, and they're like, "How do we know there's not a bad guy? Have we played this one before?"
We can't
And
be
I'm like,
sure.
dude, wouldn't it tell us if there was a bad guy? And they're like, "That's what the bad guy would say." I fucking love that game. All right. Yeah. Let's cut to Virus. Unless you guys were gonna do something in the Garden of Secrets.
No.
Okay. Let's cut to Virus. Does Virus stay the night? Or does he leave after?
I was invited to sleep, so stay the night.
Okay. You wake up the next morning in a bed fit for a princess, wrapped in silk sheets.
Velour.
With one arm on your shoulder, and she is still asleep.
Is it like early in the morning? Like I usually wake up.
Yeah, it's Virus morning.
Oh, time to leave.
All right. Do you make any
Actually,
effort to leave quietly, or?
never mind. I'll stay. How big is this room?
Well, like 500 square feet.
And whenever, like, for like Natra and the other princesses, are they like woken up by the staff typically to like go get ready for the day, or are they left to their own devices?
I don't
Or
know
do you
how much you know about like a princess's morning routine. What you do know is that like on your travels with Natra, um, Gwen doesn't like wake her up, but Gwen does like wake up before her and like carefully monitor to find out when she wakes up and have everything ready so that like as soon as the princess like yawns and stretches her arms, she's like rushing over with everything that she needs for the morning.
Gotcha.
So there's probably like watchful servants waiting to pounce when she wakes up.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll leave
Okay.
quietly.
Okay. Yep, you slip out of bed without waking her up and get dressed and leave. As you are leaving, you do see a servant girl like peeking and like watching you leave.
Wait, just if she's me?
Yes. There's like a servant's door into the princess's quarters,
Ah, okay.
and the servant's door is like cracked open, and you see her like looking through it. If you obviously notice her and don't try to hide that you noticed her, she like recoils away.
I notice her.
Okay.
I look over that way and I give her a grin, and then I walk out of the room.
You were gonna cause so many problems, dude.
All right. Where do you go?
I think I go back to. Are we having breakfast with the king?
He
In the
has not
morning?
invited you to breakfast with him.
Was Natra invited? Or
Not that you know of.
Gotcha. Okay.
King also seems like relatively uninterested in personally entertaining you guys. Seems like the only reason that he really even like called you to that dinner was so that he could throw his dart at the political board, because like he literally left the dinner right after he said that. He didn't even like stick around to finish the meal.
Right. Okay. I just go back to the boathouse, I think.
The lake house.
Yes. Lake
Yeah,
house.
it's not a boat. It's not a boathouse houseboat. Yeah, you go back to the lake house. Okay. You find Gwen uh awake and preparing Natra's things. Natra is asleep.
Okay. Yeah, I walk in. You're up early.
Gwen like just gestures to her work of everything that she's getting ready for the day and says, "It's my duty."
I didn't think you got up at the same time I did.
I didn't think knights got up as early as I did. But then you aren't very. And then she like gives a pause and says, "I suppose you're still new to this."
Yes, I suppose so. And I have people younger than me that I have to keep up with.
She
Back in the Dolphins.
she goes over to a pitcher and pours you some water and says, "I suppose I should tend to you as well, sir," and hands you the cup.
I accept it and say, it's not entirely necessary, but if you feel like it, I shrug and then say, I'm not going to be adverse to it. What's on your schedule today, Gwen?
He shrugs and says, "I suppose we'll ask her." And just then Natra wakes up. Natra, you wake up. You're in the lake house. You see, in kind of your waking grogginess, you see and hear Gwen and Virus. You don't really make out what they're saying just yet.
Cue
Anything from here
yawn
out, you hear.
and stretch.
Looks like the princess is up.
Gwen walks over with a tray with a pitcher and a cup on it. Comes over to the bedside, pours you some water, and it says, "Good morning."
Morning. I take it there was no assassination attempts overnight.
She looks at Virus and says, "None that made it to me."
It'd be quite bold to try to assassinate you in this lake house. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it on the outskirts. And if someone were to do it, I would actually imagine it to be Lord Halo.
It was a joke.
You joke about assassination in front of your bodyguard?
Well, of course. And she gets up
Forgive me.
and she lets Gwen like fuss over her and kind of draws a curtain and continues talking and says, "What I intend to do today, unless there's any argument, is I would so like to get a better idea of the trade of the kingdom. Um, and perhaps get the chance to meet some of the knights here at the same time."
Is there a particular reason you want to meet with the knights?
Keeping up appearances, of course.
I see. I plan on doing some sparring with Lord Halo a little bit later in the day. I could handle that for you, unless, of course, you would rather handle it personally.
It may be better to handle it personally, though perhaps if I could come watch, and perhaps there may be other knights present.
Virus nods and says, I got you a meeting with the Queen set up. I'm not sure if that'll be today or in the future, but you can look forward to that.
She perks a brow and says, oh, uh, very well.
I believe the prince will be there as well, but I can't promise that, I suppose.
Oh, that meeting should be, delightful.
Virus nods and says, yes. Whether it's pleasant or not, I think it's necessary to assess what was proposed to you yesterday.
If you say so, I believe that perhaps it will be difficult, but of no consequence.
Virus nods and says, if you want, I might join you for that, but I understand if you would rather go personally. Or alone, rather.
It is all right. I can go personally. I'm sure there will be guards and knights about.
Virus nods and says, yes, you'll likely be in good company.
Gwen adds in, for one reason or another, Queen and the Prince have been avoiding everyone. They've been sulking about in the basements. Practically a dungeon down there. Actually, I think it was a dungeon at some point, although there are no prisoners or guards.
In the basements? I figured they'd be on the outskirts of town.
They're in the palace. It took me a while to find them, actually, but the servants bring them things, often. They're quite needy.
Now, I wonder why that would be the case. Perhaps to protect a sole male heir that he thinks might be in danger, and the one capable of producing of another, or they are just as unhappy with him as his oldest.
Virus nods and says, I reckon it's the latter, actually.
Do we know why she dislikes him so?
Oh, wait, dislikes who?
Why the princess dislikes her dad? The
Uh,
king.
yeah, okay. Virus shakes his head and says, not entirely, but I imagine it's due to some form of misogyny and keeping her locked up here when she's actually interested in, it seems like, mathematics and the colleges. She seemed quite intrigued about your father, actually.
I see.
That could be a good point for you two to connect on, actually, if you do wish to continue bonding with her. But I'm not sure how necessary that is, since I've scored you a meeting with the Queen. Veer shrugs and says, I suppose that's up to you.
I will give it consideration. Thank you.
Beerus nods and says, Princess, is there anything that you would like me to do today? Sounds like you'd be quite busy.
I do want you to get some idea of the capacities of the knights they keep around the uh, palace, not necessarily for any gain, but it will be good for your own knowledge, not necessarily the duelists, but their royal knights.
You're talking specifically about the ones close to the king?
The
Or
ones you will be able to find in this sort of area interacting with us on a regular basis. I am curious to know what the differences are, and if necessary, as I've already said, I would be interested in watching any trials. I do have some interest in coming to observe them myself. So it can be under the guise of a princess's curiosity, and I'm sure they will be happy to rise to the occasion in the assumption that they are all of the same. When I am looking for potential suitors, the king's offer is perhaps one complication that they may want to stray away from, but it will be curious to see how they react nonetheless.
I can go seek an audience with them. Perhaps they all eat lunch at a similar time or something. And would you like me to try to set a meeting up for you? So that you can get to know them on a more personal level.
Maybe. I'd like to see them fight first.
Beerus nods and says, I'll see if I can secure that with Lord Halo.
Thank you.
Gwen finishes tending to Natra's hair, makeup, and undergarments, and then says, "For what occasion are we dressing you?"
She thinks about it and she says, a day amongst foreign nobles.
Gwen goes to one of 3 dresses that she had already picked out and helps you into it, and you are ready to go now.
Yay!
What do you guys do first?
Are Natra and Virus acting together right now?
It's up to you guys, I guess.
Yeah, I guess this is a question for Natra.
I guess probably for a little while.
Sure. What time of day is it?
Early morning.
Like sunrise morning or still
Yep.
nighttime?
Probably like, the sun has risen and it is still very low in the sky.
Okay.
Probably breakfast first.
Sure. Would you like me to escort you to the castle?
Uh, that would be lovely.
Sure. I lead both Gwen and Natra to the castle. And I guess to the cafeteria. What's it called? Is it called
Yeah,
a
there's like
cafeteria?
a dining hall,
Dining hall.
where breakfast will be served. On the walk up there, Gwen asks Natra, "Do you wish me to accompany you today?"
She thinks about it and says, you did quite well yesterday, actually. Is your arm still hurting you?
She shrugs and says, "Truth be told, most of my body's still sore. Nothing that hinders me.
She thinks about it. Um, and then says, take one more day, check in shortly before lunch, and then dinner in the evening. I want you to do similar to what you did yesterday. Check in on occasion. Let me know what's happening.
She, not knowing how right she is, she says, I'll be sure to report back on all the gossip about Severus.
She smirks and says, oh, good.
Is that all you're interested in, Gwen?
Apparently, it's all the servants here are interested in.
Veer shrugs. Says, can you really blame them? I'm probably the most interesting thing in this kingdom.
Ha!
I smile.
You reach the dining hall, where you are seated by an usher boy, and servants bring out breakfast. It's duck eggs and like some fried cabbage uh, and bread.
Is this similar to, or worse than, or better than what were served in the Dawkins?
The same quality that you would expect to get in the palace at House Addershant's, um, but different cuisine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And is anyone else of note in here?
Good question. Not when you first show up, but after you sit and the food begins to arrive, Princess Nita comes and she walks in and sees the two of you sitting at the table and eating. Gwen obviously has gone up to eat with servants. Um, and uh she walks over and takes her seat, which is next to Natra. Um, and says, "Good morning," to Natra. "How did you
Morning.
sleep?"
Oh, quite refreshed, actually, and yourself?
"Exhausted."
Oh, okay. Well, my sincerest apologies for that.
They bring her breakfast and she says, "No, no, the good kind of exhausted."
She perks brow.
She says, spent, drained.
Very well. Um, I suppose a tiring evening is a satisfying evening.
Not usually, but sometimes you get lucky.
Right, then.
How do you like the lake house?
It's quite nice, actually. Is it actually like on the water?
Yeah, so it's actually like built out on the end of a pier. There's like a pier that goes out over the lake, and then it widens out to like this big disc uh like dock, and on that dock is the house. Um and the house is like very open airways, kind of like exposed to the elements, but like it's just beautiful here all year round. So it's pretty much fine. It has a roof, but there's like very minimal walls. Um, yeah, it is beautiful though.
She nods and says, it's nice to wake up to the sound of the water.
She says, "I think I've spent more nights out there than I have in my own room."
She smiles a bit and says, I can certainly see why.
It used to be my mother's favorite.
She tips her head and asks, well, what changed her mind?
She doesn't go outside anymore. She's and she kind of like taps on her temple with her two fingers and says, "A troubled woman."
She, nods a little bit.
Life has a way of driving some people mad.
It can be a difficult thing.
I should introduce you.
Oh, perhaps you should.
She'd like you, you know.
You think so?
Well, you're just very proper, very well mannered. You do everything a princess should.
I see.
Mothers know she'd love you more than me, she says, and kind of chuckles a little bit and takes a very long sip of her water.
I can't imagine that to be the case, but I suppose it is worth a meeting.
Well, we can expand your imagination later.
Sure.
You can meet my brother too.
I'm sure it would be an honor. What is he like?
Well, he's hideous for one thing, she says, and kind of chuckles and says, "He's a good boy, though. You know, he's got a good heart. He's smart, not very strong, often sickly, but he's good. I don't know who he gets it from."
She nods, kind of just in acknowledgement, and says, all right then. Oh, I suppose this is something that we can do later once the evening clears.
She shrugs and says, "Anytime, really. What are your plans for the day?"
I intend on watching the knights do their thing.
What is their thing exactly?
Sparring.
Oh, she looks at Virus and says, "He talk you into that?"
She shakes her head and says, quite on the contrary, I enjoy watching.
Well,
She
I
was
don't think they have too much to show.
she was enthralled by the show that Prince Jax and I put on for.
Well, if Lord Slug Slime is to be believed, you and Prince Jax are possibly two of the best fighters in the whole world, so expect disappointment, and if you're surprised, well, enjoy the surprise.
Will do then.
Uh, Lord Halo enters, uh, and Princess Nita says, "Speak of the devil, and he will slither into the garden."
Are you going to remain eating with us while he's here?
She looks at him and says, just barely loud enough that he'll hear. Uh, it is difficult to maintain an appetite. And he just kind of steps in and gives a little bow. And says, "Well, I shan't stay long then. I wouldn't want to disturb you." And he looks at Princess Natra directly and says, "Princess, I overheard that you wished to see a display of combat."
I quite do.
He says, "I've informed the knights. Uh, there
Wait, was this dude just like listening in?
sounds like it."
Oh boy, okay.
Varys, dispatch him.
He says, "I've informed the knights. They're mustering their fighters."
Fucking everyone in this kingdom just listens in on what we're talking about.
Yeah, as that theme creeps into Virus's mind, he becomes more acutely aware that there are servants like carefully listening to
Mhm.
all of this and watching. He sees
Okay.
them like
Yep.
poking around the corners and like lingering a little too long after they leave a dish. Whole fucking house of spies.
Yeah, for real. This is Demeter's kingdom. Where like literally everyone just operates for him and gets information for him.
Demeter checks his list. Oh God, Lord Halo.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be an interesting name to see?
The princess is in danger.
Okay.
I look at Natra and say, "Is there a specific time that you wish to visit their dojo?"
She shakes her head and says, at your convenience, I would presume.
I look at Halo and say, "Is there a time of day that your men fight best?"
He chuckles and says, "Probably only whenever I'm watching. I imagine they do very little otherwise,
The fighters in this kingdom are slackers.
in general, but there are exceptions.
Oh. Hmm.
I
Perhaps
believe you met one of our finest fighters already,
uh,
Cerulean Highbard."
yeah. But he doesn't stay in the kingdom, does he? He's in that port side town.
Halo nods and says, "He's been relocated."
I see. So I imagine some of the men here are actually lacking in training. You don't seem like one to step into the ring too often.
I keep my contributions verbal.
I figured as much.
Nita seems to finally kind of acknowledge his presence as something has piqued her interest. And she says, "And what if the princess wants to watch you fight?" Halo looks at her and says, "Which princess?" And she just chews her cabbage and says, "This one," and points to Natra and says, "I already know you don't care what I think." He says, "What makes you say that?" She says, "Oh, fuck off. What if Princess Natra wants to watch you fight her bodyguard?" Halo just kind of looks at Princess Natra for confirmation.
It's kind of funny that you mention it, but I approached him last night about the very same thing.
Oh, did he turn you down?
Actually, I look for him for confirmation and say, I believe it was quite the opposite.
He says, he says, "If my lady desires a spectacle, I will provide one as best I can. Though I'm slower now than I used to be."
I will not have Sir Beerus sparring anyone he is not interested in sparring. I am mostly here to sit and watch.
I can assure you, Princess, there'd be no one else in this kingdom that I'd rather spar with. After hearing the glorious tale of his triumph in the Great War, how could I not desire a battle with this man?
I see. Well, then I suppose it will be so.
Perfect. I look towards Nita. Is your interest piqued now, Princess?
She, still with a mouthful of food, says, "I'll watch." She looks at Virus and chews intently for a moment and then says, "You gonna win?"
I'm not one for losing. But Lord Halo is a different breed. Perhaps he's better than
Halo,
Jax.
Halo kind of walks behind your chair, and as he passes you, he says, "Lord Halo is 55 years old." And he just kind of pats you on the shoulder and says, "I like your odds, kid."
You're 55, but your knowledge and skill are still there. Your speed might not be. I'll be able to pick up on the techniques.
He walks out. After he's out of earshot, Nita says,
Supposedly.
yeah, supposedly, after a normal person would be out of earshot, uh, Nita says, "Kick his ass."
I'll try not to disappoint
Nita,
you.
and don't believe a thing he says. He's the fastest person I've ever seen.
Have you seen Prince Jack's fight?
No, not many people have, actually.
I suppose that's true. I wasn't sure if he'd put on a spectacle for you if you'd visited down in the Nidus. Nidus?
No, not many people actually visit there either.
The
Understandable.
Nidus?
Yeah.
It's actually pronounced both ways, Natus and Nidus.
Yeah, get fucked, General Ray. Making fun of my pronunciation.
Such a privilege.
What
All right,
is?
what do you guys do?
Actually, before we leave, I look towards Nita and say, does your father not usually eat breakfast in here?
No,
Interesting.
truth be told, he spends most of his time alone.
I don't mean to pry too much, but is that by choice or by unfortunate circumstance due to the ailments of his wife?
She thinks for a second and then says, "A mutual desire to maintain separate lives."
I see.
If you care to know, he usually dines at a restaurant in town.
For breakfast.
For most meals, yes.
Hmm.
Don't worry, it's not any sort of slumming with the commoners. He kicks everyone out, and they serve only him. It's actually quite bad for their business. Not that he cares.
A frown kind of crosses Virus's face when she says that and says, "Oh, I had a little bit of hope for a second." Do you wish to go to the dojo now, Princess? I guess he addresses both of them. Or shall we bid our time doing something else?
Nita reaches over and puts an arm around Natra's shoulders and says, "Shall we?"
Shall we?
Oh no, I
She's
haven't asked
not
you.
here!
She's been assassinated. You
What?
let her. You let the princess be touched.
You failed.
Sorry,
You
very
failed
tired.
your
Yeah, there's
job.
there's poison on Nita's arm. I didn't catch it.
You fool.
What?
uh, Vera's asked if you were ready to go to watch the sparring, and Nita put her arm around Natra and said, "Shall we?"
Yeah, she consents. They go.
Cool. We go.
Okay. You go outside the palace, through the courtyards and gardens, and out to where the upper barracks is, um, and just past that, there's like a tournament grounds, which is where they were sparring the other day when Vera saw them. Uh, and you go, and there's seats prepared for you up in like the noblest seats at the tournament grounds. Um, and you see there's a bunch of actually a lot of knights just kind of like getting all their gear on and getting ready and kind of like bumming around the fields. And as soon as you show up, a lot of them like kind of take notice and start talking to each other. And after a brief exchange among a group of other knights, one knight approaches all of you.
Okay.
Does he have a tokeny look about him?
Does
My God. I'm terrified.
He's this guy. He's not that tiny though. He's normal sized. There we go. This guy walks up and he says, he comes up and he goes down to one knee and bows his head, and then looks up, still on one knee, hands folded on his knee. Says, "Good morning, princess, princess," and addresses each of you, uh, and then looks at Princess Natra and says, "How many fights shall I win for you, my lady?"
Her brow quirks
A smile
and
a smile crosses Virus's face, like
and
a grin.
yeah, and says, well, I was hoping to have the knights here conduct some sparring with Sir Virus, actually.
He waits patiently, and then realizing that that's all, says, "So just the one then? Just one fight against your bodyguard?"
Have you heard of Servius before?
"Of course," he says and smiles.
She shrugs and then says, "If you can win one match, then that should be satisfactory."
"And what reward will you promise me, should I win this match for you, my lady?"
She tips her head
And he
and
gives a very wide, very charming smile.
says, "My utmost respect."
"Is that all?"
Not even a date.
She gives Virus a look that could kill an elephant. And then looks back and says, "For now, yes."
He, uh he, still smiling, shakes his head and says, "I'm afraid I must decline. I don't fight for so little.
Sh-
Perhaps if the lady would offer a kiss."
She 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 smiles and clasps her hands together and then says, "For one match, perhaps not. Your time, however, is appreciated. I do believe Cerberus has another match lined up already, although perhaps if some of the others would be interested in the adoration instead."
He waits for a moment and then rises to his feet and gives a slight bow and says, "Perhaps you'll change your mind." And he walks out onto the field and, takes his, uh takes his sword, puts his helmet on, and just waits for a challenger. Uh, After some laughter, in the group that he was originally talking to before he approached you, one of them comes up, puts his helmet on, draws his sword, and goes to fight him. Uh, it is over in a flash. The guy goes to attack one time, and this knight who had asked for a kiss just ducks under the blow, hits him with the pommel of his sword, spins around behind him, hits him in the back, hits him in the leg, and then hits him with another pommel strike to the back of the head and knocks him over.
I want to try to assess this to my best ability. Is it because the other knight is bad, this knight is fast, this knight is moving in a way that is different to the method that the other one is using, or is it staged?
Impossible to tell if it's staged. Uh, at the very least, you can tell that this guy is extremely fast. Um,
Okay.
he moves with the speed that Virus moves, although perhaps not the skill. Hard to say.
Netra glances at Virus to see his reaction.
Virus, your analysis is much more detailed. Um, his opponent made a pretty safe and pretty standard feint. He actually didn't even commit to the attack. Uh, this guy is so quick and was so already aware of what the guy was going to do that he just countered perfectly and moved very fast and capitalized. Uh, could be staged, but more likely it's just that this guy kind of knows what his opponent likes to do.
Yeah, he's got it memorized. What he's
Yeah.
yeah.
Like he didn't have to think about anything. He just as soon as there was the slightest tell, he knew what the guy was going to do and he just crushed him in a very rehearsed sort of fashion. The guy's probably pretty good.
Mhm.
He if you had to take a guess, he's probably actually their duelist. Just based on like how everyone is behaving around him, and based on the fact he's one of the only people here who doesn't have a crest on his armor,
Mhm.
he was still behaving like a knight. But he might actually not be a knight. He might be their duelist. I think that's probably Virus's hunch.
Okay. And there's no chance I've seen this guy at the court, right?
You
'Cause
haven't, but you haven't seen Royk's duelist fight
ah,
in a long time. I mean, you've seen one fight like years ago, but you don't see that guy here. So
mhm,
he
gotcha.
may have even died in the fight.
Are you
But yeah,
perhaps impressed, princess?
She tips her head and just she
He's quite good.
murmurs quietly. uh, she says, "It was fast. I'll give him that.
I
Perhaps
look
that'll
at
be worthy of
uh,
a kiss."
you came here to see fantastic dueling, and he's providing it. And he's even taken interest in you. And he's about your age.
Oh, all of the things that make a successful coupling.
Well,
Nita leans over and says, "For what it's worth, I've kissed him. He's not half bad."
She a laugh slips out before she can kind of help herself, and then she kind of composes herself and says, "Oh well, I cannot exactly be going about and doing that before I've made my decision at the end of my tour, now can I?"
"Oh, by the mothers, princess, live a little," she says, and she stands up and she like puts her hands up to her mouth and shouts, "Can we get wine?" And then she sits back down. And quickly like two of the knights like perk up at the shout and like look around, and then after a brief moment they realize what was just said and they both like run off. Uh and one of them returns with wine.
She chuckles and says, "I do live. I just live 5 steps ahead of everybody else."
that's
Nita kind of
important.
like looks at you quietly for a minute and then says, "Bullshit," and takes the wine. Says, "Thank you, sir." And he says, "Sir Weirden." And she says, "Weirden. Oh." And she sips the wine and says, "It's an unfortunate name." And he looks like a little bit self-conscious about it and then hands you your goblet. Do you take it, Natra?
Yeah.
Okay. He gives one to Virus as well.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
she does do the thing where she like takes a small sip and like lets it sit on her tongue in a minute and swallows and then waits a few minutes for taking another before taking another sip just to make sure that it's all like good.
Yep, doesn't seem poisoned in any way, and it is quite delicious. After giving the wine, he goes back and goes to talking to the other knights. A lot of them laugh as soon as he comes over, and he looks slightly offended.
Probably not used to getting turned down.
In
Uh,
general, there seems to be uh, a lot of like joking around and not taking things too seriously among most of these knights. A lot of them seem to be like looking at you while they talk to each other, so they're probably talking about you.
oh, bro
Every
culture.
now and
Okay.
again, yeah, every now and again, another knight will like put his helmet on, take a sword, go over, and fight the guy that had first approached you. And all of the fights go like almost exactly the same. The guy is just destroying people. And they all seem like they completely know that it's going to happen every time they go over. Uh, and a lot of them like laugh after he beats them and like get up and shake his hand. He seems well respected among all of them. Like he's the alpha of the group.
Okay. She kind of glances at Cerberus and says, I don't seem to be learning a lot this way.
No, they're friends.
Right.
I look at Nita and say, who is he? He bears no crest. The duelist, perhaps?
She looks at you and says, "A good eye." But actually he is a knight also. And then she like presses her finger to her lips as though to shush you. It says, "Don't tell anyone."
Hmm.
And she looks at Natra, feeling that she needs to explain, and says, "Nobles aren't allowed to be duelists, so he doesn't wear the crest. People outside the kingdom generally don't know that he's a knight, so no one objects."
I see.
And you trust us with this information? My, how
She
far we've come in the one day that we've known each other.
she without skipping a beat, she says, "I've trusted you with a lot more than that," and loudly sips her wine.
I suppose that's true. I look towards Natra and say, I'm guessing you don't wish to risk kissing this man still?
No. I have no interest in kissing anyone until I've made a decision.
I see. I'd approach the duelist.
Okay. Um,
With a
as
goblet
you
in hand.
approach, oh, so you can throw it down.
Yes, my goblet full of wine.
As you approach, he pulls his helmet off and tucks his sword under his arm with his helmet and walks over and holds his right hand out to shake your hand. And says, "Cerberus."
I shake his hand and say, you're quite good. What is your name?
"I'm Sir Shane."
So you are knighted.
He nods and says, "I figured the princess would have told you already."
Interesting that you think that we're on friendly terms.
He smirks and leans in close and says quietly so that no one else hears, "Everyone's aware of how friendly you are."
Hmm.
And he kind of pats you on the shoulder and says, "It's all right. I've told the servants not to gossip so much, but I don't think there's any changing their ways."
Yes, I've noticed that they're quite the suspicious bunch.
Well, I'll chalk that up to a whole lot of people in this kingdom keeping a whole lot of secrets. Breeds curiosity. Curiosity breeds eavesdropping. Eavesdropping breeds rumors. Rumors breed secrets.
I see. And Lord Halo, I'm guessing that he has trained you some bit?
I am his pupil, yes.
Can I make out in his style, like the fighting style of like a Dalkin soldier? Like,
Oh,
does
you can
he?
do more than that. He's using a Dulcan saber.
Oh, okay. And
Uh,
were the other soldiers?
no.
Okay. Is this guy
Um,
Dalkin?
could be. Uh, doesn't really sound like it from his dialect, but if he's lived here a long time, hard to
Mhm.
say.
Okay. And could someone be a duelist for another country if they came from another country?
Sure.
Okay, cool. And I say, I'm slated to have a duel with your master, then. Is he here?
He probably will be shortly. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Ask away.
I'm sure it seems absurd, uh, but people talk a lot. They say you've never lost, not even in sparring. Is that true?
That's not true.
He nods and says, I didn't think it could be.
My relief is quite good as well. I'd put him on about the same level as Prince Jax.
Oh, that's impressive. Although I'm sure anyone who's trained with you for so long.
Fierce nods and says, Yes, he's undergone quite rigorous training. As have I, and apparently as have you. But Fierce kind of looks him up and down and says, You're held back quite a bit by your competition here.
He looks around and says, oh, this isn't the competition. These are just men who've come here hoping to win something from her. And he kind of like gestures with his head up toward Natra.
And they don't realize it's futile since you're here?
Well, they don't intend to win it by winning duels. They intend to win it by fetching things for her, bringing her a handkerchief when she sneezes, bringing her wine, singing her songs, whatever they're good at. Most of them aren't fighters. He kind of like leans over and points so that you can like follow his arm and says, that one, he's good. I'd give him maybe a 1 in 4 to beat me. That one over there, ah, I don't know how much I can say for his technique, but you see the size of the man. I mean, he's fucking huge. It's just hard to fight anyone with so much reach.
Right.
He's not bad, don't get me wrong. Bit slow, but very good. Uh, he uh, he points to one other and says, "And him, he's my progeny. He's the one who'll take over for me in about 8 years."
You've only been the duelist for 2?
That's right.
Hmm. I take
Long
it
way to
he's
go.
the second best?
Uh, he's getting there.
I see. And might I ask a question?
Of course.
You're actually interested in her? And I nod towards Natra.
He smiles wide and says, "Well, it's part of the game, isn't it?"
She doesn't take kindly to games. She's a very serious person. And if you actually intend to win her heart, I take this very seriously.
Well, I don't know her yet, and I doubt I ever will. But
Getting to know a
what
princess
harm
isn't that
in
hard. You just have to impress them a little bit.
Well, you're not the first one who's impressed that one. And he kind of pats you on the shoulder and raises his eyebrows a little bit.
What are you getting at?
Well, I'm just getting it. You know, you're not the first.
Perhaps she likes good fighters. Witty men. Jax couldn't woo her, probably.
No?
I doubt
You
it.
fought him, didn't you?
Yes.
He waits a long time of just looking at you before asking, and then says, did you win?
Yes. However, when we fought with only our fists, then we were oiled and shirtless. I think he won a couple of rounds.
By the mothers, he said. Then he says, "Well, if that's on the agenda, I'll definitely be needing a kiss."
If you wish to fist fight me, I'll be more than willing to accept.
He says, "Well, like I said, I don't just fight for nothing. I mean, she's gonna have to put something up." And he smirks and pats you on the shoulder and says, "But if you want to fight in private later, come find me."
Sure. I think I go
He
back to. Oh, go ahead.
after a moment, he like turns away and starts to walk away, and then he turns and comes back and says, "Another question.
Yes.
You don't use the saber." And he like holds out his Dalkin saber and says, "Do you just not favor it, or?"
I've trained with every weapon that's present within the Western Kingdoms. The fuck, I can't think of the word.
Glaive? Is that what you
Glaive.
use?
Yeah, glaive. Yeah. The glaive just fits my style the best.
He nods and says,
But I always keep one on me, and then it's not a saber; it's the other sword.
"Yeah,
And
you have the little short
Mhm.
Cincadeus."
Yeah, but this is just dueling preference. Perhaps it'd be different during war.
He says, "I was so slow to come around to it, but Lord Halo convinced me. This is a fantastic weapon."
Yes, I'm sure he's one of the best with it as well.
Yeah. You've got to get him pretty liquored up, but if you can get him to tell you his war stories, they're quite the tales.
It's not with that abhorrent tea drink, is it?
You don't like it?
Being from the Dawkins, I imagine it would take quite some time before I got used to it. Tasted like algae.
He kind of bites his lip as though he's almost ashamed to admit this, and then says pretty quietly, "It's it's advantageous. It puts the mind in a sort of flow."
I see. That's why he's always so relaxed.
Relaxed, yes, but with cognitive ease comes very rapid thought. It doesn't slow him down, it speeds him up. He's got me hooked on the stuff now. But gods, I can fight like a monster with it.
Would you be able to use that during a duel at the
Uh,
court?
there aren't really laws about it because nobody really thinks that like performance enhancing drugs
Mhm.
exist.
Okay. I look at him
Everyone
and
is sort of under the impression that like drinking or taking any kind of drug would be a disadvantage.
gotcha. I look at him and say, well, if it keeps you alive, might as
As
well
so
use
far.
everything to your benefit. But your king doesn't seem like the type to actually use his duelist very much. Otherwise, I don't know why Halo would pick this kingdom to live in.
Well,
But I suppose you do border Gazash territory.
he says, "I'll confide something in you. I've already been instructed to prepare for a duel at the coming court.
With whom?
Your man, Altman. We're fighting over some salt mine or something. I guess the king has been planning this for years. The first court without you.
Virus looks up to towards the sky and then kind of like looks down at him and says, "Your king didn't believe that you could beat me. Does that hurt?"
He looks surprised by your question and then says, "No," as though it's a ridiculous thing to say, and says, "Virus, no one believes they can beat you. The only fights you get are ones where some king has to show an appearance. Bodies were thrown at you so that kings could say they tried when their nobles asked them. No one has thought they could beat you for 5 years.
I see. Perhaps honor and pride are not as prevalent in this society as I thought. But
Pride, yes. Honor, no.
understandable.
Pride often circumvents honor in unexpected ways.
I look at him and say, "My relief is nearly as good as I." "And you tend to take him on with a Dalkin blade?"
My intention is to serve my king.
"Yes, but your
Personally,
first..."
I think dying over a salt mine is fucking stupid.
"I agree."
But one of us is going to. He shrugs and says, "May the best man win."
Virus nods and says, "I would perhaps play around with the idea of using another weapon. But that's just my advice."
He seems to not really think too hard about that. And then he says, "One thing's for sure. This is going to be the best damn show anyone's seen in a long time. I intend to make sure of that."
"You do seem like quite the showman."
I think we're probably the two best, right? I mean, that's my impression from seeing the other duelists at court. If Altman's half as good as you, which I believe he is, I mean, I think we're probably the two best.
"There's a chance."
Well, it'll be a good fight then.
"Yes, it'll be a shame to lose one of you."
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna get back to trying to impress your lady. He
"Good
puts his
luck."
helmet on and kind of steps out and like beats on his chest with his gauntlet a couple times, holds his sword up in the air and says, "All right, let's start two at a time now. Two at a time, any takers?" And a couple knights like stand up and shake their heads and put their helmets on and go to fight him.
I return to Natra and Nita.
You back yet, Ashley? Okay, in that case, I'm gonna go use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Very good luck. You guys are out crime fighting, and I'm
This
wooing.
dude needs to bang the princess, so he's even with you.
Natra.
It's
Yeah,
only fair.
you each bang each other's princesses.
It is only fair.
He's got to impress Natra, but
Natra's being all Amish and shit.
No kissing before marriage.
It's a sin.
No kissing before sex.
Wait, what? What's
You
Demeter
have to
Crane?
kill him.
What's Demeter Crane doing next?
Dismantling, aspiring,
Okay.
/ overthrowing a casino.
I'm,
Baron.
I'm just warning you, stay busy. Your
Yeah, I
surprise is
know.
looming in the streets. And as soon as you get your 5 minutes passes moment, it's surprise time, I think.
I maneuver through the alleyways and the secret tunnels.
You avoid going to all your usual places. You get a letter. I burn it. I throw it away.
I burn my house down. It's the only way to be sure. I fake my death.
I can't wait till you get your surprise.
I'm gonna stay super busy so that I can never be surprised.
You're gonna get ambushed in the Garden of Secrets.
Not the Garden of Secrets is my safe place.
Whenever Demeter walks in and he just wants some alone time, he lets the gates fall.
when
just
blood is
sits there
shed in the
alone.
when blood is shed in the Garden of Secrets, it's like, you dare defile this sacred place.
It's really a good thing that we haven't given any of the kingdoms any reason to hate us or to side with our enemies.
Nope.
Besides the fact that we're just too awesome.
Don't worry,
I meant-
King. We got this in the bag. So long as nobody's out there committing a terrible, awful diplomatic incident, we'll be A-okay.
I've only committed 2.
You're 2 out of 2.
Ashley back yet?
I don't believe so.
Seems not.
Oh wait.
She's mad at us.
What's the topic of discussion?
I'm warning Cody he needs to stay busy so you don't have time to give him a surprise.
All right, Cody, what does Demeter do?
So-
I guess I go fishing.
I go fishing, I go shopping, I get my hair cut.
Yeah, we'll jump over. We'll jump back to Ray and Demeter.
I go on vacation.
What do you guys do after the secret meeting?
Oh God, Ray, do something. Hurry.
After some amount of time passes, so it's not weird, I asked to meet with General Morris and the Chancellor in my
Okay.
office. Do I have an office?
You probably don't have an
People will be
office,
dead.
but
People will be dead.
Do I have like a
General-
place where I could summon people? That isn't like the fucking chambers.
So generally the chancellor would do that. He would like pick a venue and like bring people to it. You do have your oh, actually that was what I meant to do. Yeah.
But
If you talk to the chancellor, he tells you that they've finally found you a manor in Mount Kimon. So you have an actual
That's
house in the
perfect.
city now.
that's what I would do. I'd spend a day moving in there, and then I would call them once I'm like settled.
Okay, cool. We'll come back to you then.
Okay.
What does Demeter do?
I immediately go back to what do we call it? The witch? No, the wretches.
The Wretch's
The-
Way.
The wretches way. Apostrophe at the very end. I go back to the wretches way to meet up with to get a What's the to debrief? I guess I would debrief him.
Debrief.
Okay.
Yeah. What is he giving
Yep.
me though? He's just briefing.
You find Reginald in his office, and he is looks like he's poring over some ledgers and things. When you enter, he kind of smiles and says, "You're back,
I am.
and how was the desert?"
I would say it was fruitful, and I'll toss the list of names on the table.
He looks at the list for a second, doesn't acknowledge it too much, as he wants to give you his reports first, and says, "I have good news for you. Do you recall the insubordinations I had mentioned?
I recall.
It's been dealt with rather publicly. I found their source. Apparently, a man was paying some of our boys to do their job a little slower, a little less effectively, to lose things from time to time. I figured you'd want to talk to him, so I left most of him intact."
Hmm. What was his? I'll ask him what his name is, but I'm basically just looking to cross-reference it with the list. Is it?
Uh, it is
It's probably
not
not a
someone on the
nobleman.
list.
Yeah, I don't
Nope.
think you'd kidnap a nobleman without talking to me first. I would hope.
Hard to say.
Who
Reginald is
knows?
is pretty
Loose cannon.
pretty go-getter. He's reliable though. He wouldn't let it lead back to you in any way. You know that much at least.
Right. Never mind then. Yes. When I have a free moment, I will go and speak to him.
He points to a large wooden crate in the corner and says, "He's over there."
Oh, the crate. Excellent. I guess I have a free moment now, I suppose. I is the crate sealed?
There's a pry bar sitting on top of it.
I pry the lid off and then I do the thing where I kick the crate down so that he spills out of it.
Uh, yep. You do that, and you see a very not fully alive but not quite dead man uh spill out of it. He is not conscious. Um, he's covered in burn marks, and he's had one of his ears cut off, one of his eyes gouged out, uh, both of his hands cut off.
Okay. Wild. Did he say did he say why he did it?
Um, copious amounts of money.
From whom? Psst, whom?
He says, apparently, some fellow named Roybal. Roybal Thornton.
Roybal Thornton?
I can't find dick all about him, but
Not on the
apparently
list?
he's a merchant.
Hmm. I'm thinking maybe he might be on the list.
He's not on your list, no.
Oh, okay. Another unrelated merchant guy trying to. Oh, this is probably just like a trade war thing.
It is probably a trade war thing.
God damn it. These
Considering
people
he's
coming after my
disrupting,
bottom
like,
line.
yeah, he's disrupting, like, your business, not
Oh,
your
not the
business.
network.
Yeah. He's disrupting your trade empire.
Does that name mean anything to me? Like, is he a known merchant of these
Um,
lands, or is he a foreigner?
you you trace your memory trying to see if you've ever heard of Roybal Thornton, and something does occur to you. It can't possibly be a coincidence. Uh, there is a very renowned jeweler uh, who lives in the Bledican Mountains, whose last name is Thornton. You don't know his first name.
Okay.
Could be either
Okay.
related or could be the same person. Hard to say.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to deal with that at some point. Can't have people messing with the business. Did anything else
Reginald
happen
says,
while I was? Oh yeah.
"Yes, I ensured the message was sent. Bits of him mailed out and such."
Excellent. Did anything else happen while I was out?
He glances back over at the ledger as though he needs to check something before answering and says, "All shipments are on time." And he flips a couple pages and says, "No trouble on the seas." "Oh, there is something. A curious matter. A young woman came looking for you.
Oh no.
She said she'd been sent by some Lord Virus."
I think it's Sir Virus, actually.
"She certainly said Lord. I wrote it down.
Oh.
It wouldn't surprise me if she's mistaken. She seemed simple."
And what may I ask has befallen her? What have you done with her? Just left
"Precisely
her.
nothing.
Okay.
I sent her home to wherever she lives and told her we would send for her when you arrived. Apparently, she could not. Apparently, she could not deliver her message to me. It's for your ears only. Noble to noble," she said, clearly also misunderstanding your rank and station.
Right. Clearly. Speaking of Sir Virus, nothing on that front yet. Nothing reported in from them.
He flips back through the ledger a few days and looks and says, "Yes. I can't even begin to explain this," he says, and just pushes it to you and says,
I read
"And
it.
I imagine you'll be furious." Uh, the report reads as such. A large conflict ensued in the port. Cerberus slew 4 knights. I am certain of their rank. They were knights. I did not make out their crests, as it was dark, and the fires were small.
Is that it?
Uh,
That's oh, is that where it ends?
nope, that's the beginning of it,
Page
and
one.
then and then yeah, then
Novelization.
it says on report from Cerberus, colon. House Garzash attempted to kidnap and hold Princess Natra captive. He acted to protect her. Significant bloodshed was the outcome. The handmaiden confirms his story separately. They've landed in the kingdom of House Roik, where a summons was delivered demanding that the member of our crew who slew the knights be given to them. Our options appear to be thus. We could give up a member of our crew, saying that one of them was responsible, or we could not meet their demands. Interestingly enough, the legate at the port seems to favor option 2. Apparently, House Garzash has been hawkish in their demands of him, and he's made a habit of ignoring them.
End of report.
End of report.
Oh God.
Reginald, with his feet still kicked up and flipping through another ledger, says, "So they've fucked the whole thing up already."
I mean, I expected this. I just not so soon. Oh. Well, go ahead and send Renshaw. Actually, I assume you've already sent Renshaw confirmation of our receipt. Receiving of the message. Receipt of the message.
He just nods, continues to flip through pages, and says, "This may also interest you."
Oh no. It's a signed confession letter saying, "I killed him. I killed the king." Signed, Lord Virus.
He says, "Apparently, the contractors that you sent to renovate Sir Virus's estates have been dismissed."
Uh,
uh, by whom?
By and he like leans in very closely and reads it and says, "The Dame Nolvaris."
The Dame Novaris. Does this mean anything to me? I mean, I know Cody
Uh,
knows, but does this mean anything to the character?
that would be like uh Virus's wife if he had one, but he doesn't.
Okay. Odd.
So no, you have no idea who this person is.
Better
Well,
go
we'll
check it
go to-
out.
This is clearly the most pressing issue we have here. This house must be renovated. Well, let's go ahead and put that one on the back burner, Reginald.
it is where you're sending the prisoner. It's very important that the house gets renovated, Cody.
Yeah,
You're
the
right.
prison needs to be built.
Yeah,
The holding
renovate it with
cell.
a prison cell on the wall. Secret holding
I
cell.
think Virus would like that too.
Here's
He
your
says,
dungeon.
Reginald says, "According to the engineer, she is something of a mad woman, raging about the place and threatening people."
Oh dear. Well, we'll deal with that. We'll burn that bridge when we come to it. For now, I think that we have more pressing issues.
He nods to the pile of person that spilled out of the crate and says, "What do you want me to do with him?"
Well, I can imagine we really have no further use for him, so he can just be disposed of. Uh, we can go ahead and put out a not like a bounty. Bounty is not the right word. I guess like a bounty.
His ears perk up at bounty. He likes these sorts of things.
Oh, excellent. I'm looking for someone capable to send up to the desert to establish a new operating post. Someone will have to run it. Someone obviously capable. So
He
send
purses
out.
his lips and nods and thinks about this and says, "The desert isn't so far. Perhaps in the meantime, while you look for such a person, I could manage both."
Well, like I had said, one needs to be established as well. I already have a place in mind and a specific individual to target to acquire the facility. But there will be some legwork required. And I look
He
at the old.
gestures around him and gestures to the pile of ledgers that are on his desk and says, "In truth, things have become rather mundane here, and I feel my skills are not being fully utilized. Perhaps a change of scenery would do me good."
What will I do without you, Reginald? I need you. You're my rock. Um. Yes, I suppose do have quite a few vacation days stored up.
He snickers at that.
Perhaps. Yes, I mean, I suppose I can think of no one more capable for the job.
He stands up and starts lacing up his boot and says, "Oh, don't fear, sir. This place practically runs itself without me."
Oh, I somehow doubt that.
Mm.
Not your abilities, of course, but the void left by your absence.
All the bastards will figure it out.
You can, of course, take whatever men and resources you need up there with you to secure our position.
He uh he says, "I'll draft up a plan."
Excellent. Well, while you're still here, see what we can find out about this merchant fellow who's encroaching on our business. Can't imagine he's the
Your
most
men
pressing issue,
looking
but
for him. And he
oh,
shrugs
excellent.
and says, "My guess is he's foreign.
Mm.
No one round here seems to have heard of him."
Oh, right. You said I know this, but I did not say it out loud.
Yeah.
I do know a man who shares his last name. Last name? His surname?
Family name? Yeah.
Family name?
Oh,
Yes, what is he?
he's a jeweler in the Bledican Mountains.
He's a jeweler in the Bledican Mountains. A well-off fellow. Could be connected. Imagine something worth checking out.
Reginald nods in frustration and says, "Damned mountains. We've practically no connections up there whatsoever. I'll see if I can get a man on it."
I trust you'll do your best. For now, I take the. Can I take the report? The report sent by Virus, or
Yeah.
I guess by
Yeah,
Brenshaw.
by Renshaw. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll grab that and I'll say I have some important news to pass. Some sort of pressing news, I would say.
Yes, I'm certain the king will be fascinated.
Oh, I think that's a word for what he'll be.
Do try and keep his feet on the ground, lest his hot head make him fly away.
If we somehow end this day still not at war, then I will be happy.
Oh, war isn't so bad. Lots of money to be made in war.
True. Only I had my siege equipment business. It's very hard and very expensive. There's only one guy who knows how to make them. He's really far away. Wait, didn't I sent out a request for one of his
You did,
apprentices,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, anything about that?
No reply yet.
Oh,
It's pretty far.
he left me on red. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Yes, I will leave you to it then. And wait. Let me make sure we talked about everything. Okay, so merchant guy who's encroaching my business dealt with that. Virus's girl he sent to me, who we sent back. Oops. Deal with that later. The renovation people were sent back. And then the report. Those four things. Those four things we talked about, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Excellent. I believe that's it then. Yes, I will take my leave.
Cool. Good. I've been sitting on all of Reginald's fucking reports for so long. Trying to keep
Piles
track
of
of everything he's
documents.
been doing.
Oh, Virus.
You really should go see why those workers are dismissed.
Yeah, you're right. That's the most pressing issue. I must go deal with that right now.
Could
Oh
be
my
treachery.
God, their union. I'm
They
paying
might
out
seek
the ass for
revenge.
those.
That's hilarious.
It sounds important. That's all I'm saying. Somebody's undermined your wishes.
Yeah. As soon as I leave, I will seek out the chancellor and call a meeting of the usual folks.
Or
I'm
the
not sure
usual
who
folks.
else would be. Yeah, well, myself, General
I guess
Ray,
Yeah, you want
probably
to then?
General Morris as well.
Oh, the small council.
The small council.
That thing that it's definitely called. Okay. The king too?
The king as well and the chancellor, yes.
Oh.
The
Excellent.
queen, maybe? Does the queen want to come too? Like sit in on one?
Um,
This might be a good one.
If you ask, do you ask the Chancellor to invite the Queen?
Do it, Cody. Be progressive. Push boundaries.
Well, I mean, I feel like, you know what? Yes, I will. I'll ask the chancellor to invite the queen as well.
It
Gentlemen.
gives you a
Is that
look.
peer pressure?
That was peer pressure, yes.
The Chancellor gives you a look for a second and pauses and says, "The Queen."
Well, if the king intends for her to sit on that last seat, she
Yes.
should be involved in the politics, shouldn't she?
Yes, that's what I wanted you to say.
I will provide it as a meek suggestion. I've no intention.
I imagine you're very good at
summoning
meek
Her
suggestions.
Now, Chancellor, you know the king doesn't like meek suggestions.
He looks only slightly hurt by your sideways comment, and he leaves to go summon the small council.
God, what a cuck.
Gentlemen,
And,
I've called you all here today because someone dismissed my workers from Virus's estate.
This is outrageous.
General Ray, I want you to assemble our army at once. We march at dawn.
This will not stand. We'll burn that place to the ground.
Burn it down.
General Ray, you are summoned. by the Chancellor for an
Okay.
urgent meeting on behest of Mr. Crane.
How soon is this? Because we just met. Is it
This
like
is like 3 hours later.
okay?
Like you basically you show up. Oh, we'll do this real quick. You
Yeah.
show up to your manor. You've been given the key to it. You open the door. You look in. It's very nice. Um, they've. It looks like most of the furniture has been like taken out. But you see a couple of men like moving furniture in, and you see a woman who seems to be kind of like directing it all, and she sees you and walks over and says, "Hello, General. I've been charged with seeing to it that your quarters are prepared."
Oh, it's much appreciated. What's your name?
She she like kind of pops to attention and says, "I'm Captain Letho."
Have I met Captain Letho before?
No.
Okay. Is Eddie's a thing? In this?
Yeah.
I would almost yeah, I would just Eddie's.
She says, says, anything that you require, of course, just let me know and we'll have it brought here.
Will do. I'll have a look around and I'll let you know. Things seem to have gone smoothly so far.
You've been in the house for maybe an hour, and in through the open door that people are moving things in and out of walks the Chancellor, and he says, General?
Chancellor, so soon.
Yes, well, apparently Mr. Crane has some urgent news that involves you, myself, General Morris, and the
The
Queen.
Queen?
Hmm. Well, there's only one type
Yeah,
of news
me
with Mr.
too.
Crane, so it seems about
Yes.
right.
I wonder if you might assist me. I feel quite out of sorts summoning the Queen to a meeting.
That's fair. I'll come with you.
Thank you. Uh, and yeah, you and he go to find ISO. Um, when you do get there, he just says, "My Queen, uh, General Ray and I are on our way to an important meeting. It was mentioned that you may desire to join us." And she looks like slightly confused by that and looks at you.
Yeah. Mr. Crane's invitation. I'm assuming it might involve our exploits up north.
Then she says, "Oh, of course, lead on, Chancellor." And you go. And the small council has been assembled.
Does the king come in last and it's all dramatic like?
King does come in last.
Or is Cody like hiding behind a curtain and
Demeter is already smoking, and the room is already. It's like kind of smoky, kind of.
where's Crane? And then we see a puff of smoke from the corner.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Gentlemen, the hour is nigh. Somebody dismissed my work.
The king shows up last. And when he sees the Queen, he like stops for a second and then just seems to kind of acknowledge and take it in and then go and take his spot and says, "Mr. Crane, what brings us again so soon?"
Is there a like in some business rooms or meeting rooms where there's like maybe like some sort of like drink cart, like an alcoholic beverage? I'm not asking for literal a cart, but
There's
Refreshments.
definitely like some bourbon on hand.
okay, yeah.
King Aaron
Demeter,
is a big work drinker.
What's Demeter's go-to? Is he a wine drinker or
God, bourbon seems so sophisticated.
does he drink like pirate drinks?
Ah, damn it. Yeah, it's probably rum, huh?
He pulls out
He loves
a
pina colada.
He pulls out a handle of Captain Morgan. I've got it covered.
I had this buried for 5 years, aged
Yarr.
perfectly. Yeah, Demeter pours himself a drink and sips it kind of slowly in the corner, and he comes back to the table and says, "There's been an incident. I figured we should invite everyone here, including the Queen, if she's going to be involved in the politics of all of this. It appears that your daughter, the princess, and Sir Verus have run into trouble on their first stop in House Garsage.
King Aaron's pupils dilate and his eyes narrow.
They
And
are
he
fine,
just
alive. I should start with that.
pierces your soul as he listens quietly.
Ray leans forward.
Pausing for dramatic effect. Clearly, they're alive.
The doctors did all they could do, and they're just fine.
They're both alive and safe, and out of the kingdom. But it appears upon their entry, there was an attempt to hold them hostage in the kingdom. Unsuccessful, I might add. But House Garsage knights were killed in the process. It seems most likely by Sir Verus. At least 4 or so of them were slain, and it seems that they've taken that quite personally.
He just stares silently. Everyone else is looking at the king, uh, waiting for something drastic to happen. After a moment, he says, "Go on."
Did they include in the report that Jax helped them escape? Did they say that? I don't remember.
Brett, remind me. I don't
Yes.
think you told him that. Oh, you did? Okay.
I think I mentioned that Jax
Okay.
alluded to
Yeah.
the
If
knights.
you gave that report,
Yes.
then Reginald gave that to Demeter. I thought that had been left out. That's my
No.
bad.
It appears that they escaped with the assistance of Prince Jax, making it safely back onto the Spirit of Fire and then safely into House Roik, where they have been sheltered, although House Roik has been inquisited by House Garsage to hand the perpetrator over. They do not mention Sir Verus by name, but it's anything but.
The king says, "And what is House Royk's response?"
They have chosen not to turn them over,
Aaron
ignoring
nods.
the request from House Garsage.
General Morris, after a long pause, says, "My king, this must means war." And the Chancellor says, "I would advise," and the king interrupts him and says, "I know what it means."
How much of this can be substantiated?
Not much. It's kind of their word against our word kind of deal, unless people take the word of, well, sailors. I would presume that no one in House Roik actually can confirm the events. For none of them were present.
"Mr. Crane," says the king,
Yeah.
I require your service.
Ah, that's what I've been waiting for.
He
How
says,
may I be of service?
We need to contact Prince Jax. We need to learn his intentions in all of this. And if his intention is a coup, we will oblige. Home dies for this.
Of course.
and he looks at Morris and he says, in parallel, General. And Morris kind of nods in acknowledgement. He says,
How is our young Altman Kellum?
and Morris says,
He trains hard. He's maintaining the level of fitness and skill that Severus left him in.
and the king says,
You will ensure he can beat Combs' man, should we have the opportunity to settle this at court.
and Morris nods and says,
I will ensure that his training doubles.
the king looks at the chancellor and says,
The merchant. The one Mr. Crane found.
and the chancellor nods and he says,
Have him invited to some sort of function. I want to speak to him. Nothing that will raise suspicion.
the chancellor says, I will plan an event.
I would advise caution, Your Majesty. We do hope to use him to catch all of the smaller fish, if you will.
The king nods and says,
Yes. In the meantime, I need him to deliver a message to his king. I intend to let something slip.
I see.
and he says,
I want to make sure they know it was Severus who killed those knights. And I want to make sure it gets out why.
he looks at Ray and says,
Your men who apprehended the assassin sent by King Combe,
What of them?
have them accidentally speak of it. Let it get out. I want all of this being talked about at great length.
In the Galston court, that is?
he nods.
I'll send word first thing in the morning.
And he says, If we're going to kill a king, first we have to take his crown. If no one recognizes him as king, then let him be dead. We'll see what sort of man his son is. hope he's a better one.
The queen says,
I think I understand. But who is to kill King Comb?
You speak as though. And Aaron cuts her off and says, I'm going to kill him. At Langstana. And the Chancellor says, My king, And Aaron says, It isn't up for negotiation. He threatened my daughter, I'm going to kill him. We have to make sure. Well, and he kind of shrugs and says, We have to make sure no one kills me for it. So we ruined him first.
Ray looks like he thinks for a moment before he turns to Mr. Crane.
Mr. Crane turns towards Ray.
What kind of context do you have in King Combs lands?
They were just chased out. You had Virus.
So none left.
I'm afraid that his lands aren't particularly hospitable for my style of dealings.
At King's Aaron's own description, this could easily fall in the description of a coup. And being a father myself, I'd be every bit as swift to punish someone who threatened one of my own. But so far, King Comb has been nothing but predictable and, in all fairness, bad at what he's been trying to do. Jax, on the other hand, is so far proving, if this is a coup, cunning enough to see this all coming. The concern is we remove an easy threat with a more difficult one. And the last thing I want to have us do is be manipulated by such a man, who would then inherit his father's claims and basically resume his father's grudge.
Not to agree with General Ray. He does make a point. If you see someone tailing you, you don't immediately sell them out. If you do, then they'll just replace that person with a better person. We know King Comb is spying on us. We know who his spies are. We have a general idea of his weird plan. He is right, and he is the devil we know versus the unknown of Prince Jax.
The king looks like he thinks about this for a few seconds and then says, I'll consider it. I do need some time.
Of course. Was there anything else, Mr. Crane?
The king kind of
Sorry.
waves his hand in frustration and says, You'll have your orders. I'll think on your point, General.
Ray would
It
nod.
did not fall on deaf ears. And the king leaves, unless stopped by someone.
Go to your workers.
When Oh my! Oh no! My union dispute. Also on the
Damn, I'll have to
docket.
bring this up in 2 hours when I call the next meeting.
The first council meeting. My union workers have been dismissed. This is outrageous. This is clearly the worst thing to happen to this kingdom since. um. So the queen does not leave with the king.
Nope.
Okay, how do I do this without being a fucking weirdo?
The
Demeter gives.
queen,
Yeah.
the queen, just to cut you off real quick, the
Sure.
queen asks Demeter point blank. She says, "Are you confident in the reports you were given? You do you believe they tried to kidnap the princess?" That just seems so. And she like thinks for a second and then says,
Ray would cut her off. Stupid.
"Yes. Well, it
That
seems somehow less stupid that they failed. What if they had succeeded? King Aaron would invade, and I dare say no one would stop him. People may not pick sides. I mean, it may be just a war between two houses, but home would be on his heels,
At face value,
especially in the
good.
early assaults. Aaron's navy is formidable, I believe," she says, and kind of defers to General Morris, and he says, "Their coasts would fall almost immediately. They would have to take the fight inland. They'd lose much early. It would be a difficult war to rally." And she says, "So, what outcome were they hoping for?" And she says, "Surely he would not negotiate." And then she kind of looks
I,
at Crane as like the guy who knows him best and says, "Would he?"
it is a. It is a wild play for sure. I cannot say that I would do the same. It is a poor move to make, which is why I agree with General Ray. I think there's more going on here. I believe the people who sent the message, of course, but I believe that the way that I believe that the message that they were given, Cerberus by Prince Jax, may have been misleading. I believe that Prince Jax may, in fact, may be playing another angle here that we do not yet see. Which is why I imagine we should move cautiously.
I'll be blunt. If it's a war with his kingdom we're going to get, I'd rather fight King Combe than his son. That said, if it's a coup he wants, and King Aaron seems to be willing to oblige, by all means we could go forward, as long as assurances could be made that he wouldn't pick up his father's mantle and chase the same things he chased.
General Morris pipes in and says,
I wouldn't be too quick to overstate the relevance of the king. An army will always be weakened by a coup. Sir Jax may be, or Prince Jax may be clever, but to say that the house would be stronger after a coup is.
he just kind of shrugs and says,
Surely some would be killed in the conflict. Generals, or at the very least, knights and nobles. That number
Loyalists
would
to the cause.
dwindle. people would be promoted into positions they aren't trained for yet. They'd be in no condition for a war. If Jax does have some evil plan, it's a long one. We may have time yet to work with him.
All fair points.
The queen says, "How long do you think it would take to become prepared for war after such an event?" Morris shrugs and says,
10 years? It's hard to say.
That
she
said,
seemed shocked and says, 10 years? Truly? And he nods and kind of gestures to Ray and says,
It takes a long time. Armies aren't born out of nothing, and their leaders take longer. If you kill the leaders, replacing them is slow.
that said, King Combs' manner of rule is well known. He may be just marginally less popular than the other kings might be. But the statement's still sound. We're talking years, several years.
the Chancellor says, it would hurt them economically too. No one would trade with them after something like this. Or at the very least, no one would pay him taxes. I don't know how many changes of power you've all seen in your time, but I can tell you they all come with a very unpleasant phase of insubordination financially. Tax collectors have to be quadrupled usually. I mean, people are hired in droves just to collect and count money. Money's lost. Plenty are seeking to make a fortune off of it, and they're successful at it. Men such as, and he kind of gestures to Demeter and says, such as Mr. Crane, know how to capitalize on chaos. And the victims of those capitalizations are kings, nobles, lords. Their finances would be crippled as well.
On the topic of chaotic shifts and mergers, let's shine that lens back on ourselves for a moment. We're nursing a. How long has it been since the game started?
Like 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Yep.
something like that.
We're nursing a 3-week-old merger of kingdoms. The process is far from done. And Morris, tell me if you disagree, but the combining of our forces, I'd be self-critical enough to say it's been mediocre at best.
He nods and says, There's much work ahead of us.
If I had to pick a fight with us, I would do it sooner than later.
You're right.
I think above all else, getting an insight into Jax's intentions should be paramount here.
The Chancellor looks at Crane and says, do you have any sort of plan for that? King seems to think you can just reach out and touch him.
Well, in this sort of matter, speed is paramount. We have to get on top of this. I have assets in place nearby enough that we can get our answer quickly enough. Surely by the end of the week. but it is risky. There is no real way to do this without at least somewhat revealing our position. If Prince Jax is our real antagonist in this manner, we would risk exposing ourselves.
Well, Virus and Natra spent some time in his court. They might have an idea of people that are close to him. Angles you could have for approach, no? We'll be seeing them at the first court.
I don't think we have that sort of time.
True.
If we don't figure something out soon, I imagine the second we set foot in Langstana that the king will just cut down King Comb in the street. So
General
True.
Morris shakes his head and says,
On that, I believe I know the king's plan. There's precedent for it.
he
Is this like a known law or something, Randall? Or
no, not anything that you know.
okay.
But he's about to explain it. He says,
I'll find the exact log, but at one of the early courts, a king had behaved so heinously that it was put to a vote to allow another king to duel him. Enough voted in favor, and they dueled. That's his plan.
He
He
does
just
realize
needs the other kings to agree that he has legitimate claim to the duel.
as they all would, for they have nothing to lose in this manner.
They do.
King Comb dies, they've rid themselves of a nuisance.
Yes, but you
And
forget King Aaron is a nuisance to them as well.
exactly, it's a win-win. No matter who dies, the two titans fighting off against each other.
Morris shakes his head and says,
Combe is old, and he was never a warrior. Aaron would win. Everyone knows it.
Never underestimate your enemy, General Morris.
he chuckles and then says,
While I agree with you, Mr. Crane, you've seen the king fight yourself. Granted, it was long ago. Do you believe him to be one who would lose?
I believe it to be unlikely, but unlikely things happen all the time. And if he were to die, well, you understand what sort of position that would put our kingdom in. Given our current status.
the Chancellor like raises his hand as though in
Yes,
protest
Chancellor.
at court and says, I don't think we do. Things are still extremely unclear on that matter. And I was hoping that this court would be an opportunity to clear most of those things up. I believe it's important that we not become sidetracked from that. The king, for fuck's sake, intends to, and excuse me, your majesty, he intends to plant the queen on one of the thrones in court. Now, does he want to do that before or after he challenges King Combe to a duel to the death? Because the order of precedence matters considerably. The queen says,
You are excused, Chancellor.
You may leave. You excuse.
not like he has to leave, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
asked for her pardon for like speaking out about it. He says, I don't know how much more we can add to our docket. We're bringing a lot of contentious topics to the court already, without a promise of murder and vengeance.
Perhaps we could get some of the other houses to yield their time. Give us some more time for our many pressing issues.
The Chancellor looks at the Queen and says, My Queen, I've not known you long, but I beg you, speak to the King about this. Convince him that he's taking on too much. Some things must be put aside. He cannot rewrite the entire world in 1 week.
This is
If
treason,
vengeance is what he
Chancellor.
wants, then we can prioritize that. But not in the midst of all of the rest of this. It's too much. The other kings will never allow it. The court will never allow it. They'll laugh at him. She looks like she thinks about this. And then she just kind of looks up and says, What say the rest of you? Is the Chancellor alone in his concerns?
I think that if, in the off chance, he somehow manages to pull all of this off, he will effectively solidify his position for some time to come. It's a gamble, a risk. Turn the entire world against us. But I see his vision. I stand behind the king.
At face value, I don't disagree with the Chancellor. And while we're on a timer, we have time. Right now, we're operating on a completely unsubstantiated claim that 4 knights were killed by our duelist. We need information before we can act. If we arrive at court with nothing more than what we have today, I agree, we'll be laughed out of the chamber. But if Mr. Crane can come through, as I know he will, and we can bring something with us, anything, to make this real, then we can get much farther.
The Queen looks at General Morris and he says,
My Queen, I'm not a man of politics. I understand it well enough. The king intends to make many enemies. My job is to ensure our enemies do not defeat us in battle. I will do my part.
She looks at the Chancellor and says, Are you satisfied? And he says, My Queen, of course I stand behind the king. I will do as he commands. I will fulfill my duty. But I do not agree with him. She thinks for a second and then says, It is easy, as many simple men do, to see my husband as a madman. It's the opinion of many. But I believe I'm starting to see the wisdom in his madness. I believe you will too, Chancellor.
Dude, this guy keeps getting put down. Oh my
And
god.
he just nods and says, Yes, my queen.
Randall's been reading the complaints I've been putting inside of the box.
And she starts to walk away and then turns and says, "Thank you, Mr. Crane, for the invitation."
Of course. Anytime.
And she leaves.
Well, gentlemen, we're fucked. Oh man, we're so fucking dead. Game over, man. Game over.
Cody says that, but General Morris pretty much vocalizes it himself. He says, "We're definitely going to fucking war."
Yeah, try as we might, I see very few other outcomes. Even if we get Prince Jax on side and do this whole little coup nonsense, I can't imagine that will save us from what's coming.
And what if we sell out Prince Jax?
Sell out Prince Jax to King Comb.
Expose his coup.
Expose his.
Yep.
Let King Comb take whatever is coming to him, but also let it be known that Jax sent it to him. Get rid of both. Or at very least, put the last man standing in a position where he can't act against us.
I get. I think I see the point. I think I see the premise of what you're implying here. We don't necessarily need Prince Jax to actually do a coup. We just need King Comb to believe he's going to do a coup. If we can somehow convince King Comb of this, then the effect will pretty much be the same. Sort of
General Morris
forcing Prince
says,
Jax's hand.
General Morris says, "Civil war."
Yeah, Civil War coup.
If
He
a war is
nods
going to be
and
fought,
says,
let them fight it.
he nods and says, "Now that's a good fucking plan. Let's do that instead. Keep our men out of it. Make them fight each other. Can you do that? That's a damn good fucking plan."
It will by no means be easy, and it's rife with opportunities for failure, but I can see what I can do.
The Chancellor nods and says, "It's certainly better."
If nothing else, just take it one step at a time. We need to know more. The more we learn about what hand Jax did or didn't have in this, the more clear it'll be that this is feasible or not.
Hmm. The Chancellor's still here?
Yes.
He hasn't melted into the wall out of shame.
I'm getting like real Michael Scott Toby vibes from Cody the Chancellor.
um, the Chancellor, the meeting that the king is going to have with our merchant friend. Whatever the king intends to secretly pass on to our informant, maybe have him sprinkle a little bit of Jack's coup in there.
The Chancellor says, I'll see what I can do."
Yeah, you're a learned man. Throw some fancy words in there that make it sound believable.
He he drapes his cloak back on and says, "Gentlemen," and leaves.
If this ship's going down, I'm drowning that man. He dies before I do.
Every time a Chancellor speaks, you make that face. It's just-
I hate you.
Why are you the way that you are?
Well, gentlemen, if there's nothing else, I have a democratically elected country I have to overthrow.
Indeed, you do. We'll leave you to it.
You mean you have to sort out your engineers, right?
Oh yeah, fuck! I forgot about the engineers. Damn it!
Prepare my horse. I ride south in the morning. In the months.
I write stuff at once. There's no time to waste. If Sir Veers comes home and his home is in disarray, he'll never forgive me.
All these shelves are half constructed.
We're such good friends.
Yeah, Demeter, Mr. Crane will take his leave.
Okay. Any of you guys doing anything else today?
Today I'd pass word as per the king's instructions to my men.
Okay.
What were those instructions again? I fucking forgot, and all the excitement.
They're basically supposed to like drunkenly gossip about how they like got into some scraps with like agents of King Comb that were like here undermining them.
Oh yeah, so just get drunk and like talk about what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Basically, King Aaron just wants it to be like widely talked about that some shit is going down. But not be like we're making an official statement that we've been wronged by another kingdom. He wants it to just be like blasted out through the public that like war is on the horizon, basically.
Okay, so yeah, like what already happened with the court up there in the north was kind of like what you said at first, the former,
Right.
where it was
Yeah.
we were wrong. Like the second one is no, shit's going down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like basically the thinking behind it is the king wants the kingdom to be getting like riled up.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't go behind the king's back on that one. I send word to my two top boys.
Okay.
If he's sending word, I have word to send as well.
Okay. You barge into my chambers while I'm drafting the letter. Go.
I need to amend something to that. No, it's going to somebody else.
okay.
I'm going to send a message to Renshaw. He is temporarily being reassigned.
Okay.
He is to find a way to cross back over the river. They're like across from it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So cross back over the river and deliver a message of which I will compose to Prince Jax through whatever means he deems fit.
Yeah, while you're like in your little headquarters office drafting up this new order for Renshaw, Reginald comes in and he says,
Mr. Crane, you'll never guess what I just fucking saw.
Oh god.
More stuff to deal with.
A raven.
I shot
Is it
it
a raven?
because they don't exist.
The engineers came to me.
Told
He
tales of
hands
dark
you-
sorcery. Go.
he hands you an unopened letter.
Who is it from?
Reginald, you know I
It
can't
has
read.
Virus's seal on it.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Ooh.
House of Eris.
Yep.
House
House
Novaris.
Nalvaris, yeah.
Whatever. I open it.
Whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Before you do that,
Oh,
he
It's
says,
anthrax.
before you do that, he says, "This is for Severus from his beloved sister."
How did we wait? So the letter in my hand right now is a letter sent by his sister to Verus.
Apparently, she knows he's working for us and asked me to deliver it.
To me. To Verus.
He nods and says,
I have a man following her. I have no idea how the fuck she knows about us.
Interesting. Which direction was she heading? Back toward Verus's estate?
Last I checked, she was still slamming it in the city.
Well, we can't just go sending letters willy-nilly. Especially if something like this were to be intercepted. I'll have a word with her myself. Was there anything else, Reginald?
he kind of like smirks and shakes his head and says,
Nope, nothing else.
Well, excellent.
You're not going to like her very much.
I'm not going to like her very much. Is that what he said?
"Yeah."
Oh, and why is that?
She's exactly like you.
Oh, fuck. Smart, handsome, charming.
Both eyes, though.
Ah, everyone's a critic.
Time to fire him.
I told
You're
you
not
never to
hired to
talk
point
about
out my flaws.
You're here to make me feel good. Um, right, of course. Well, and I imagine quite a few years younger, if I were to guess.
He nods.
I'm sure I won't have any trouble managing her. Hopefully.
He
I already
just
have a lot
chuckles
of
a
money.
little bit to himself and grabs some things out of his desk and leaves.
Oh, like forever. He's
No, he's not like not clearing out his
I'm off
desk.
to the
He just
desert.
takes some
Bye.
things.
Good luck. Okay. Yeah, I finished composing that letter. And then arrange that deliverance, and then I will seek out uh what would I call her? Lady?
Dame.
Dame. Dame Nalvares.
All right. She's in this bar. She is sitting down at a table by herself. One of your men is watching her, um, keeping an eye on her, making sure she doesn't go anywhere or do anything unseen.
Yeah. I give him a slight nod, and I'll sit down next to her. Oh, I'll wait for her token to appear. She's so small.
Yeah,
She's
she's
3
normal
foot.
size.
She's 3 feet tall.
She's normal size.
Oh, okay. She seems kind of slightly bigger than me.
Yeah.
I feel threatened.
You must be Dame Nelvarez, I presume.
She she just leans back and looks at you.
Mm. Yes, well, I received your request, and I grab out the letter. I grab the letter out of my coat pocket, reach into my coat and pull out the letter. I'm afraid that I cannot send this without knowing its contents.
She takes a drink of wine and then says, "You must be Mr. Crane."
That would be me. What is it that you need to send him so urgently that you can't wait till his return? And also, if I may inquire, why you sent away the contractors from his house, his estate.
Is his return imminent?
I don't imagine he'll return for quite some time.
Then my
Several months
message
at
did
least.
not require urgency. It is merely that I do not wish to wait.
Yes, well, I'm not exactly the fucking post office, am I?
She just looks at you intently.
Oh no, a true antagonist. So about the contractors, he was very clear about this. He wanted this done before his return. Were they not suitable for your high stature?
They were novitiate, feculent cockroaches.
I pull out my dictionary. Novitiate? Cody pulls out a dictionary.
She says,
Oh, novice.
they burned. Burned part of the fields. Because they said the roots had undermined the foundation, compromised the integrity of the stone at a load-bearing juncture. Burning cabbages doesn't uproot trees. They're fucking imbeciles. I would have thought, given your reputation, you would vet your workers more carefully. It
And
seems
what
like
did
paying attention to the
the
wrong
foreman
portion
have to
of
say
your reputation.
about this? Foreman? Engineer? The person in charge, not the general laborers, but the man in charge of them.
He seems to be under the misconception that the arrangement of my genitalia precluded my ability to comprehend his actions.
Oh god. Oh brother, this guy stinks. Yes, I can see how that could be rather disconcerting. Perhaps I can make arrangements for new contractors to be sent out
I think
to
you've done quite enough on that front, Mr. Crane. I require your post services now.
my post services.
Yes, the letter. I wish it delivered to my brother in exchange for the work he's done for you.
I believe that me and Sir Virus have already worked out our arrangement.
Consider
And it
this an
never.
addendum.
Oh, you're altering the deal. See, you usually have to get these sorts of things in writing. I don't even believe I was aware that Sir Virus had a sister. Now here you are, demanding me to send a letter to your brother. It can be done, of course. I am quite a capable man, although you may not believe so. I mean, you at least believe me enough to send a letter to your brother. But
Pigeons
my.
send letters, Mr. Crane. I think you must be qualified.
Quite right. But my services come at a cost. A cost that people pay me to perform these actions. Everyone pays. Your brother paid. Hell, the king pays in his own special way. And I can't help but notice that your letter does not have any postage on it. And he sets the letter down in front of her.
She looks at him and says, "Are we bartering?"
I'm open to any thing that you have to offer.
She looks around and says, "Is business amuck? Have you become poor? Am I
Afraid
meant to
not.
guess at what you require? Which resources you're running out of? Do you perhaps
Oh.
need cabbages? I'm afraid all mine are burned."
I mean, listen, when you're a man as wealthy and established as I am, you want for very few things.
I'll never be a man as wealthy and
Surprise me.
established as you are, Mr. Crane. I'm a noblewoman.
Exactly. I worked for my station. You say the same? I'm sure that your position as a noblewoman has been just sort of handed to you. I'm afraid I don't give handouts.
Yes.
She narrows her eyes, puts her elbows on the table, and leans in and says, Mr. Crane, I've spent the last 6 years eating leaves and roots and raw fish in the wilderness to the north, seeking a mountain that no man has ever climbed, intricately mapping every winding stream, every rock, every divot and crag. I have spent my life going places no man dares to go, and bringing back all of the knowledge they could ever dream of, and you'll not find my name in a single hall. The king's army uses my maps for their movements. Do not mistake my prior lack of station for a lack of qualification or rigorous work. I have worked more than any man who works for you ever has or ever will. I have accomplished more in my life. So yes, I'll have my fucking title now. She leans back and says, Now, is there something you want? Or must I sail across the sea myself and deliver it?
Hmm. Curious. How about this? I'll send your letter to your brother, and in return, you will offer me a favor, non-specific, that I may call on at a later date. A request I will make of you that you shall not refuse.
She reaches across the table and picks up the letter, slips it inside her coat, pulls her coat on over her shoulders, stands up, and walks out.
Never buy your first car on the lot. Always come back twice. Just wait here confidently. She'll come back. She'll reconsider.
You're in so much trouble.
Fierce is gonna be so mad. I fucked up.
I'm gonna tell my brother you were mean.
Well, yeah, as she walks and departs, I turn back to her tail and I give him a slight nod as to
Is it
continue
a
pursuing him.
follow her nod,
Yeah,
or is it a
continue
you?
following
Okay,
her.
okay. He
and then I
leaves.
will finish my drink. However long that takes, 5-10 minutes. He takes his time.
Okay. Cool. I think we're gonna jump to Virus and Nacho to close out for the night.
My hands are sweating. I'm sweating profusely.
You're in so
I
much
cannot
trouble. So much
maintain any
trouble.
longer.
Engineers got fired. Your postmaster title got revoked. What else is going to happen?
Lord Halo arrives. He is not wearing any armor, but he does arrive with his. He arrives with a training sword,
Mhm.
not his actual sword, and he just walks straight over to Virus, and he gives him a little like very casual kind of salute, and says, "Sir Virus."
Lord Halo. Are you ready to begin?
He nods, and he looks over to like the bleachers where the two princesses are watching, and he just gestures for you over in the field.
Yeah, I follow him.
He looks around, and all of the other knights have like stopped what they're doing and are like gathering to watch. He says, "Quite the audience. You ever get nerves?"
Of course. I get nervous every time. It wouldn't be exciting otherwise.
He nods.
What about you?
He says, "Don't know. Guess we'll find out. Haven't done this in a while."
I see. Your pupil over there is quite impressive.
He nods and says, "He's good. See if
Is,
he's good enough."
I must say, I must ask, is he native?
He uh he nods and says, "He was born on the west side of the lake. His family moved east. Lived in the hills for a while. Got picked up by one of the captains."
And he was knighted before he became the
He
duelist?
uh he nods and says, "Hereditary.
Hmm,
Older house.
I see.
He was knighted at, I think, 16."
I've only seen him sparring with these knights. I would hardly call it a match. Do you think he stands a chance? And then I use my relief's name. I forget his name.
Altman.
Altman.
Halo shrugs and says, "Impossible to say. There's always a chance, though, however small."
There is a proposition on the table that could save both of their lives. But you're not willing to risk that for war.
He shakes his head and says, "I like Shane, but I don't like him that much."
Understandable. Do you have another one of those? And I nod towards the training sword.
He gestures over to a rack that has a bunch of them and says, "Take your pick.
Oh,
Probably got
perfect.
something your size."
Yeah, I go get one. I get the same one that he's using.
Okay. Everybody is kind of just silently watching and waiting. Uh, he just keeps the sword low, doesn't really like bring it up for a guard, but he does get his stance with his legs
Mhm.
and just says, "Whenever you're ready."
Very well. I approach with confidence.
Okay. Do you attack?
I do.
Okay. Uh, your first couple attacks, he doesn't actually raise the sword at all. He just like leans back or steps sideways to just kind of stay just barely out of reach, uh checking it almost like to the inch. um and then finally, after you kind of fake and change your attack, he has to actually parry, uh which he does very quickly. He parries, steps inside, and just wraps an arm like over your shoulder and around your neck, and just like drops his weight and just pulls you down to the ground and puts you in a choke. Uh Shit you've never seen done, never thought of, never like even really imagined possible. You still have your sword, you could still try and like turn and attack him, but it's a long weapon. You're using like one of the long sabers.
Hmm. Yeah,
It would be
I
difficult.
I drop it and try to elbow him.
Okay. He just tucks his head low. He's not even moving very quickly. He's just moving very precisely.
Hmm.
Just tucks his head low, sinks the choke in a little deeper, gets his legs hooked in your legs, and your vision starts to go out. Do you keep fighting?
Yes.
I give in.
Okay. Uh, just as it seems like you're about to black out,
I
you
want to
slip
try to
your
roll
chin
my.
under,
Okay, cool.
and you break the choke just enough that you can breathe and blood starts flowing again. And you hold there very painfully for a very long time
Hmm.
before you're finally able to actually like push your way out and struggle up onto your knees and like get over to your weapon and get your feet again.
Did he drop his weapon or did he have it the whole time?
He did drop it, and he kind of just like he had basically like fallen onto it and was laying on it. And as soon as you get up, he just stands up and picks it up again, and seems very relaxed, not even like particularly winded from it, although he
Mhm.
is breathing heavily and is like sweating.
From his movements, I want to discern if I think he's been drinking the tea thing.
Uh, Probably.
Okay,
He was just reacting inhumanly fast.
gotcha.
Um, like nothing you've ever seen. Again, it's not that his movements or his body is moving that fast. It's just that he starts moving like before anyone else would. Um, he has more time.
Gotcha.
Uh, he just kind of stands up again with the sword very low, not taking any particular kind of a guard.
Uh, okay, if that's the case, I want to make this like as start making this like as dirty as possible, and just make this
Okay.
chaotic. Um,
Okay.
so I want to like spit blood. I spit the blood that's like in my mouth out, and then I kind of like give him a smirk, and I say, "Now I see what the kid was talking about." And then I like to do the sword twirl thing, and then I attack again, and then I want to try to like jab like very quickly like at his legs.
Okay. Uh, he again tries to like basically tries to just toy with you and not actually parry any strikes and just like step and lean.
Mhm.
But you're too quick. He clearly is used to being able to do this. And after like only a few like maybe 1 second, he can't keep up with the leg work, and he basically has to like pull his leg up. He straight kicks and pushes you back a little bit, and then has to parry your counterattack. Uh, and you actually almost just from the sheer force of it knock the sword out of his hand, and he has to like correct his grip on it afterwards as he steps back and makes some space. And he kind of chuckles and says, "Oh, strong one."
You're pretty good yourself. Shall we continue?
He gives you a nod, and this time actually raises the sword up into a high guard.
Okay. Yeah, I approach. And then I want to do something similar, except this time I want to. Is this like a one-handed sword? Like, can this be wielded with
It's
one hand reasonably?
you you could, but it's pretty heavy. Most people use it with two.
Okay. If that's the case, then I want to use like a bunch of like two-handed attacks, and then if I have like momentum, I want to go with one hand, and then like try to catch him off guard with like my offhand, and just like try to punch him or something,
Okay, yeah,
and then just like have it delve into chaos again.
you you make a series of just well rehearsed attacks that he knows and is able to kind of move around. As you switch it up, he adjusts, and then as your punch comes in, he like goes to duck it, and you just graze the top of his head, and he kind of spins from the hit and like falls, but pivots on his knee and stands right back up and just takes a couple steps back and raises the sword to create distance again
Mhm.
and says, "Oh, evolution."
Learning as we fight.
He he chuckles and says, "See, that's not fair. I'm too old to learn. Stuck in my ways."
You're the one that started this out with a chokehold. Obviously not unfamiliar with getting dirty. And then I approach again.
This time he actually goes for an attack. Uh he just comes up with the sword in an uppercut, turns and like hits your sword just hard enough that it kind of knocks your guard out of the way. He slips in and presses the blade against your neck, stepping inside your guard, and it almost takes you a second to realize it, but you reacted just in time, and your blade is also at his neck as the two of you like lock in. Uh, and all the knights just roar cheering. And Halo kind of like looks down at the blade and looks up at you and just gives you a nod and takes a step back and says, "That's the first time anyone's ever killed me."
It's like the third or fourth time for me. First with an audience.
He uh he gives you a less half-assed salute now
Mhm.
and then says, "Maybe we'll have a tiebreaker sometime."
You're not feeling it right now?
He chuckles and shakes his head and kind of like rolls his shoulder a little bit and says, "I'm old, need rest."
I understand.
As he walks over to the seats, he looks up at the princesses and says, "Satisfied with the spectacle, princess?"
Ashley.
She says something affirmative. Gracefully.
Think we're gonna call it there. Thank you, everybody, for playing.
Cool.
It was good.